What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time.
Law enforcement in Uvalde, Texas have now essentially admitted to waiting around and doing nothing for about 40 minutes to an hour while an active shooter was inside of Robb Elementary and ultimately killed 21 people and injuring at least 17 more. So I'm going to play a couple of clips for you. This is from this morning, and then I'll get to a breakdown of the timeline, what parents were experiencing at the time, and a lot more. So here is Colonel Stephen McGraw from a press conference this morning, essentially admitting that, yeah, they failed.
What efforts were made to try and break through that door? You say it was locked. What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time. The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
You have people who are alive, children who are calling 911 saying, please send the police. They are alive in that classroom. There are lives that are at risk.
Hey,
that's not protocol, is it?
We're well aware of that.
Right,
yeah.
But why was this decision made not to go in and rescue these children?
Again, you know, the on-scene commander considered a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk. Stand by. Hey, stand by, all right? I got it. Okay, I got it. Okay. Hey, from the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. But again, I wasn't there, but I'm just telling you, from what we know, we believe there should have been an entry at that as soon as you can.
So there, Colonel Steve McGraw essentially admits to doing nothing, that they didn't try and break down the door. They just sat on their ass for at least 40 minutes, just sitting there waiting for what exactly? And then he goes on to say, oh, hindsight's 2020. The hindsight excuse only works with things that you didn't really see coming, that there was no real warning, but if you knew ahead of time, then you could have done something. This doesn't work here because you had parents screaming in your face for 40 minutes to go in there and do something. And you sat on your ass and did nothing. So this hindsight excuse is bullshit. Good guy with a gun. That's what they say. Oh, the only way to stop this is a good guy with a gun. You had a team of so-called good guys with guns, didn't do shit. And they were fully prepared. So for Mike Baker here, Uvalde school security had active shooter training, armed officers, more security money, perimeter fencing, locked classrooms, Raptor visitor screening, social sentinel threat analysis, and SWAT visits to learn school layouts. Still didn't help. And by the way, I'll get to this data point later, but I'll mention it now. 40% of Uvalde's budget, city budget, goes to policing. Almost half of their budget is policing. Quick timeline here, because this really drives home the point of how insane this was. 11:43, Robb Elementary School posts to Facebook that the campus has gone under lockdown due to gunshots in the area. A minute later, local police and the district police officer make entry into the school and hear gunfire. And by the way, in terms of what the police are saying they did here, this may change. They've been lying the entire time. So initially they were claiming that there was an officer outside that confronted the shooter, but that's not apparently true. So they have no idea what their story is. What they are trying to do here is on the fly, make up whatever story makes them look best. And because their story has been falling apart, they now no longer have a consistent story, showcasing how terrible they were and their awareness of how terrible their response was. But according to them at the time, local police and the district police officer make entry into the school to hear gunfire. They watch the suspect walk 20 feet into the school, make a right into another hallway, and then walk 20 feet. He then turned left into a classroom with doors open in the middle. So they just watched the gunman do this? So even by their own account, they look terrible. If they were even in the school, who the hell knows what they actually did? But this is what matters. 11:43 a.m. is when this really began to go down wasn't until 12:30 when Uvalde Fire Department scanner traffic calls on additional firemen need to respond to Mill Street to establish a perimeter to assist Uvalde EMS and Uvalde PD. Not till 12:45, Border Patrol and tactical teams arrive and make entry before shooting and killing the suspect, which may not even be true. He may have killed himself. So we aren't even sure if he was actually killed by law enforcement. But you have here 11:43 to 12:45. So about an hour of just nothing happening. Law enforcement doing nothing. Now, this also is coming out. Uvalde shooter fired outside school for 12 minutes before entering. This is when they should have stopped him. If this is true, again, a lot of this is evolving, more information coming out. But if this is the case, this would have been the time to stop him. And they didn't. And while this was all going on, that hour gap, onlookers urged police to charge into Texas school. Parents out there trying to get their kids screaming, yelling at police to do something. I can't even show you the videos because of how distressing they are. But I will link to a couple below under sources if you want to see some of the on-the-ground footage from parents. But it is disturbing what was happening. Just forcing parents to sit out there and wait for an hour as an active shooter was in the school. So a little more here from the Prospect. During the delay, parents even tried to rush in themselves. Quote, "Let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing anything like they are supposed to," Javier Cazares said. The parents didn't, but it seems only because the police stopped them. According to a cell phone video apparently taken at the scene, the cops threatened to tase desperate, screaming parents to stop them going in. Cazares' child, Jacqueline, was killed in the attack. Angeli Rose Gomez told the Wall Street Journal that she drove 40 miles to the school which her 2 children attended and begged police on the scene to intervene. Instead, federal marshals arrested her for intervening in an active investigation. After talking some local cops into letting her out of the cuffs, watching a second parent get tackled by police and a third get pepper sprayed, she snuck around the crowd, sprinted into the school, and brought out her kids. This woman was arrested for trying to save her children. Then the cops tackled somebody else, pepper sprayed another parent, and she was able to get out and get her kids out of the school. Showing you the cops could have done more if they themselves were willing to put their lives on risk for a second and do something. This idea that police shouldn't be putting themselves in danger, why the fuck do you have the job? If you can't do the job, then let someone else take the job. Imagine firefighters showing up to a burning school. Oh, we gotta wait. Can't get hurt. What if a falling, the ceiling falls and hits somebody and hurts them? That's your fucking job. Go in there, put your life at risk, and try to save these kids. They just sat there and did nothing. From NBC News, waiting for specialized tactical units used to be standard practice in responding to shooters. That changed after the shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado in 1999, over 20 years ago, when police waited nearly an hour for a SWAT team to enter the building, during which time 12 students and 1 teacher were killed. To save time and lives, police began sending in the first 4 or 5 officers to arrive. That standard changed again in recent years to emphasize that officers should do everything they can to interrupt shooters, even if they are alone and without backup. Now, the officers there must have already known what to do. They had the training. They had all of this. Yet, they were going by a playbook from pre-1999. Ultimately, it was purely about saving themselves. Some of them went in to get their own kids. According to a New York Post article, went in to get their own kids while they sat out there and let parents scream and cry about their own children for an hour. Now, in terms of the police budget there, the tiny Uvalde School District has its own 7-person force. The 15,000-person city spends 40% of its budget on policing. And in 2020, the Uvalde Police Department proudly touted its 9-person SWAT team that was getting to know the layouts of local schools. Not only did the police spend an hour preparing to enter the school on Tuesday, but there was also this from a fourth grader to local CBS affiliate KENS, presumably about the police's first attempt to get into the school. Quote, when cops came, the cops said, yell if you need help. And one of the persons in my class said, help. The guy overheard and came in and shot her, the boy said. This officer got this little girl killed because he did not know what the hell to do. All of this money, 40% of the city's budget, they have their own fucking SWAT team. This tiny 15,000 person city. Still, did nothing, got these kids killed. The answer here is not more policing. The answer is less. Look at all the waste. 40% of the budget and just an absolute failure. You got to see this. So here's their excuse. Watch this Texas police lieutenant discuss why cops did not want to engage the shooter.
One thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill other people inside that school.
When the school was on fire, firefighters showed up and they thought, you know what, we can go in there and save the kids, try and do something, but what if the ceiling fell? What if the burning ceiling fell on them and they got hurt and then no one could save the kids? Then they all died. It's your job to do this. This is your job. Yeah, you may have been shot. That's your fucking job. If you can't do the job, let someone else take the job. Do something else with your life. I'm not a cop because I can't do it. There are people that are built for this or decide to do this. If you decide to do this, this is your job. This is the risk you take.